Fake Sagan response video. Oops, sorry. Mr. Anderson. Yes, has come with his karate move, A, and I will do my counter, block, deflection, and we'll see what the next move is. So this is just a part of the argument I'll deal with first. It's always starts, this is the standard, is the fallacious straw man premise, and therefore the rest of the conversation becomes broken because there's a fallacious straw man premise that I'm supposed to have agreed with that I never agreed to. Anyway, to the F list. Life itself is a Ponzi scheme whereby chumps who have already bought into it can only mitigate their losses by suckering new victims. I don't even think, I wouldn't even say that's the motive of the suckering new victims. I would just argue that they are selfish donut eaters, and the donuts create dioxin, and they pour dioxin into the water they won't be drinking. It's people living upstream from the people downstream. People upstream just don't give a shit, they shit in the water, and the people downstream have to drink the shit in the water. Into a scheme through procreation. My question, so what? Well, again, your so what is a premise based on something I can't argue. All I can argue is from my knowledge of the universe. And one of the elements of my knowledge of the universe is that the difference between me eating a cupcake and having a nail in my eye is real. There's a cavern of value difference between those experiences, and that's what I'm arguing. So if you don't accept the premise that suffering is very different than comfort, and that creating more suffering, this bad stuff, is bad, okay, if it's not redeemed in some way, if it's not like an investment, or it's not a bet at the track, you give away some money and you get more money back in the end. So if you can't make the argument that this suffering, this whip, doesn't prevent whipping in the future, or something like that, then I'm going to argue that no, this is a reasoned-based definition and description of bad action. So by this annihilation, every single subject can be destroyed by a so what. I'm going to go to the Great Lakes and pour dioxin in the Great Lakes. So what? Now you have to make an argument about how, well, that will harm people. You see, yeah, that's right. So yes, you have to put value on harming sentient organisms. If you don't value the harm imposed on sentient organisms, then yes, pouring dioxin in the Great Lakes is a so what issue. But I'm saying for rational conversation between rational individuals, I shouldn't have to explain why pouring dioxin in the Great Lakes is not a good fucking idea. It's not a so what subject. And imposing torture on sentient beings, which is perpetuating a bad schema, like having babies when you're a slave or something, it's stupid. Okay, it can be described, the stupidity of it can be described in great detail. Yes. There's no argument. If you don't understand that suffering is bad, then yes, let's not bother having a conversation, because it would be ludicrous. I might as well talk to a pen, or the desk, or the mouse. It's be just as ignorant of the truth. Anyway, don't the immediate needs of the existent trump? Why would I even bother trying to find out whose needs trump whose needs before I've even started the conversation? Trump the anticipated needs of the as yet non-existent. Well, again, by that logic, all pollution is okay. So my need to not waste my time building an outhouse, it's work, I don't want to do that, it's inconvenient, I'll just shit, and the shit will be washed downstream. I don't use the water that goes downstream, so there's absolutely no reason for me not to just shit in the stream and say, who cares? Doesn't bother me any. That's a future problem. No, that's illogical. I think it's illogical that anybody recognizes the future is going to likely exist, and it's completely dependent on what we have done. In 10 years, we can anticipate you continuing to exist. We could argue that your present self is responsible for that future self's condition. If you don't take care of your present self, your future self is going to be in big fucking trouble. That's a real scenario, not an unreal one, a real one. So all of this mush about present trumping is kind of idiotic. It's idiotic by anybody who's logical enough to realize that yes, the future does happen. It's been happening for billions of years, and the things that will exist in it are as real as the things that exist in the past in a sense. Yes, they have 100%. It's a 100% guaranteed that the thing in the past existed. It's not 100% guaranteed that the thing in the future will exist, but it's close enough. It's been pretty reliable. 4 billion years. This genetic code, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, 4 billion years of evidence. It's lots of evidence that, yes, tomorrow's going to happen. So they have to be considered at least equal, and my argument to you is the future is actually larger than the present. There'll be more people in the future than exist in the present. So their needs trump our needs. That's how it really works. The needs of the slave emancipators, okay, not to have to take responsibility for the mess that had been created, and not to have properly cleaned it up. It was kind of their obligation to the future to clean it up then, not to let the mess fester and then become more and more impossible to clean up later. It's the whole idea of you know, vaccines and all of these kinds of arguments, that even if they did cause what people have lied, you know, assumed wrongly, you know, made all kinds of bad scientific conclusions, even if they did cause some harm in the short-term present, the fact is they cause a long-term benefit that's huge. Alright, so now I'll play this part, which is sort of annoying. So the first 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Well, yes, Gary does have a very good argument. He makes a very good argument, blah, 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 blah. But now I'm just going to pretend his argument is some sort of blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and it's not.
Antinatalism itself is an emotional argument. That's the only way you can respond to it.
Okay, so I would argue that everything is an emotional argument. Anything that somebody's going to argue, they first have to become motivated to argue it. And so there has to be some sort of, you know, conversation between a brain that understands to a brain that's going to be motivated, compelled, driven because of some, that's important. So it has to be made significant, and significance is going to be made through a human sensation of guilt or responsibility or ego or something. So it's always going to be, in some sense or another, have to be converted into an emotional argument because it's important, because there's something at stake that the thing values, and it can only value it with a feeling. The feeling is the expression of the recognition of the value. Without if you didn't feel it, you probably couldn't think it, and vice versa. It's just, unfortunately, this is my argument, that our intelligence, you know, needs the monkey. The monkey is the actor. It's the thing that can do the moving in the world. But it's only going to move in the world if somehow it becomes the self-interest of the monkey. And so that communication isn't quite right. The intelligence has to turn the truth into some kind of banana. Has to turn it into some sort of personal interest. I will be considered for all time a coward if I don't jump on the grenade. You know, some kind of fear that something that's emotionally valuable to the monkey is preserved. His honor, his integrity, his blah blah blah, something has to be attacked for the monkey to act. And that, I'm arguing, is a huge flaw in our ability to have a rational conversation. But likewise, the intelligence can't feel. The intelligence can't do that kind of stuff. The monkey does that stuff. And so the intelligence is informed by the monkey of the reality of the importance of these things, these feelings. It's probably not the best way to say it, because obviously I think the intelligence does see everything and know everything the monkey feels. So it has knowledge of good and evil. It has knowledge of, the ecstasy and the agony. And it's that knowledge that's being argued here. Not emotion, knowledge. The knowledge that there is such a thing as ecstasy and agony. And they're real things that have real different properties.
Yeah, like the belief that life sucks and is not worth living.
That's not the argument. The argument is that it's a zero-sum game at best, that you're just really fixing the mess that's made inside of you, the deprivation, the absence. An individual life could be worth living in the sense of there could be a perception that I'm winning. So obviously it's like arguing on the internet. I could have the retard image, and make the joke. He thinks he's winning. Okay, but no, he's retarded. And I could just make that argument over and over and over and over. Anyone who thinks they're winning is retarded. But you don't really win. You're going to die. You've already, through your optimism bias and your worm motivation, you've already discounted probably huge prices you've paid for your silly existence yourself, let alone the damage you've done to the exterior universe. Okay, not only all the stuff you've stepped on, crushed, killed, and destroyed in the process of gaining your entertainment of your sensibilities, your natural sensibilities. So again, this is not an emotional argument. It's a description of a stupid game. A game that does not make players richer. It's almost like the economy. Okay, the wealthy don't create wealth. They steal value.
Is not something that you can refute with facts.
Well, again, you could refute it with a fact. You could make the argument that your life is worth it. So you could explain how, no, I am doing something so special that you could give a kid cancer, okay, and would be okay because I'm doing something truly spectacular. So all of the stuff that suffers for my existence is a legitimate price to pay because I am doing something critical to the function of the universe. If I'm not here doing it, okay, it's not like some invisible the non-existent Martians. Yeah, we can't find exactly what would be important that the Martians could possibly be doing except giving the Earthlings psychotherapy. So we could argue that the absent Martians are a tragedy merely because they're not around to give the poor, ignorant, stupid, retarded humans psychotherapy. Something like that. But obviously you can't, there's not a problem till you create a feeling thing to be deprivated. And that's the fundamental argument. And yes, that one's airtight. That's the asymmetry of Benatar. It's just not something you can get around. The fact is that most goods are made of preventing bads. And that the creation of an actual good, if I was popped into space, I would have a hard time figuring out if I was just a thing that had the obligation of doing good and bad. I'd have a hard time trying to figure out how to do it because there'd be nothing to work with. But if you put me in space and you put little fuzzy rabbit in space, now I have needs I can serve. Now I have a function where I can make the rabbit happy. And that would be good. Making the rabbit unhappy would be bad. It would be that simple. My life could have purpose in this simple way. The rabbit's either happy or the rabbit's sad. Now the trick is, we're also a rabbit. So The catch is, in our circumstance, this rabbit needs to also be happy. Well, the problem is that you kind of people keep thinking you trump. You trump. I trump. I trump. I trump. I trump. I'm Trump. I'm Trump. I'm Trump. 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 You got Trump so fucking stuck in your head. You think you trump everything. Like Trump. You think you're Trump. I trump everything. I trump. I'm more important. I'm more important. I'm going to name my kid slave owner. You know, kill the niggers. Yeah, I'm going to name him that. Baron. Fuck. Anyway, no. Anyway, you don't trump. Your personal welfare does not trump anyone else's welfare. You can't make a rational argument explaining how you're Jesus and you're only here for a short while all you other people are here. Yes, you're only here for a short while too, but you know what I mean. You're just not as important as me. I'm me. Me is a lot more important than you. Everybody knows that, right? Me is important. You is, well, you know. Ew. What the hell is a you? Fuck that. Right? That's the bullshit. So, and that's what your whole argument is based on. It's just based on me important, them irrelevant. I can't see them. Where are they? I don't even see them. Where the fuck are they? I don't feel their pain. I don't see, what's that have to do with me? I'm just saying that is fundamentally ignorant. I mean, if you really can't understand that my broken leg isn't special broken leg, or my cancer isn't special cancer, or my anything isn't special anything, then you're really, 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 really stupid.
An emotional argument to begin with. So
again, it's not. It's a description of a game, of a thing, a function. There's a function called evolution. It can be described as what it is. Gladiator war. Okay, just a silly carnage battle. I am taller, you lose. Okay, then it's I am wiry, you lose. I am connivey, you lose. I have acid for snot. You lose. I mean, it's just a stupid, idiotic competition that has nothing to do with merit, or integrity, or real values, or accomplishment, or function. We're not measuring real, valuable function. Who can make the most rabbits happy? You know, we're not we're not winning or losing in this battle based on how functional we are in preventing whips from striking their target. We're competing for this stupid me important, them irrelevant. Who can be the biggest selfish cunt? I'm just saying that description can be validly explained through the whole process of evolution. That's all that's creating is Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, Tyrannosaurus. Eagles are Tyrannosauruses, quite obviously. They have pretty feathers. They have a little blinky eye. But they're a fucking Tyrannosaurus.
the only way you can argue against an emotional argument is with another emotional argument.
Well, bullshit on that too. Again, so your premise, I'm obviously I'm saying horse shit to your premise, and now your counter defense is I can't make a real argument. I can only make some kind of irrational emotional argument because that's all you've made. And I'm just going to argue that that's not what I've made. It's not what Benatar's made. It's not anybody who's arguing. It's not the argument they've made. They haven't made some silly emotional argument saying, I like cheese doodles better than potato chips. That's not what they've said. They've explained why cheese doodles have some sort of nutritional value and potato chips have dioxin in them. They've given you a real argument why one thing is better than the other thing.
There are no fact claims to...
I mean, the entire argument is made out of fact claims. Fact claims about what the process is. There's no God. There's no fundamental purpose. Human beings don't fulfill some purpose in the universe. They do not make the universe's cancer better. They don't fix anything. Sorry, I have to. The effect in the camera was a little too much. They don't fix anything. We don't serve a function. We make a mess. We clean up a portion of the mess and then feel proud of ourselves. And obviously that just keeps leaving recurring mess. And so the mess just keeps piling on and piling on and piling on. The soap opera goes on forever and ever. The horrific family stories, the just awful, awful, horrible, horrible, terrible, terrible. I mean, how many billions and zillions will you irradiate to death in the future? How many, what kind of, can you even imagine the 50 million bad deaths that took place in World War II? 50 million hard, brutal, slow, nasty, crappy, terrifying deaths. Are we doing something somewhere that could possibly make up for that slop, that torture? And I'm saying I don't think you can make an argument that we're doing penny one, that we don't have any currency to put in the bucket to compensate for that debt loss. Except your own vanity. I'm important. No.
To either verify or disprove when it comes.
Yes, there is. Like I said, I can verify evolution. I can verify what evolution runs on. I can verify the nature of our sensations and what they exist for. The fact that they exist to oblige us, to order us essentially, to Borg us into participating in certain behaviors that have likely outcomes. And now we have totally, in some respects, gained some freedom from those natural obligations, and that's certainly a good. But the basic addiction remains, and that's all that keeps us playing, is addiction, is a psychological notion placed in our head of I must succeed, I must accomplish, I must be. And that must has no rational correlate in reality. That must only exists in your deluded mind. There are no facts in the reality that defend that you must.
Comes to this. But, the point that I'm at right now is acceptance. And I have learned a lesson from all of this. But I'm done trying to change you, Gary.
Well, again, it's not about changing me. So this whole, again, this deflecting to the messenger, and somehow it's the messenger's personal story, and this is all This is a philosophical argument. You say right here, philosophical rather than personal. No, this sounds like you're just rolling down the same hill. I mean, I'm only 5 minutes in, so yes, obviously you changed the tact somewhere, progressing from this point. Now I'll listen to that and see if there's a point I need to emphasize, or whether I can just get by on notes. But anyway, I couldn't even get through the video. As soon as I get to these horrifically straw man premises, it's just like, what the fuck? What, you think I'm going to agree with your premise that this is just some Cheetos argument, that I'm just telling you I subjectively like baked potatoes more than boiled potatoes? No, the argument's a hell of a lot fucking more structured and intellectual and factual and real than that silly, cheap, almost petty mischaracterization. It insults Benatar, it insults me, it insults anybody who's sitting there who has spent the time necessary to weed through their own bullshit, weed through a life lived, and a life lived vainly, and having to recognize just how petty and silly, you have to go through a lot of self-destruction to be able to see the truth. And you're just insulting the price I've paid to get here, to be able to make this argument and to try to explain from looking back, in hindsight. I can explain it. Once you've had to go to the top of the mountain, you can explain how to climb the mountain. You can explain, don't go over there because you'll slide right down that fucking ice shelf and you're dead. Don't do this, don't do... So you can explain all the things not to do, and you explain how you forged a path. And I'm just saying the path is obvious from this point of view. From this point of view, all you have to do is start if you really think evolution, 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 you run that through your head in some sort of real sense, and just recognize that every piece of you is some sort of, evolved piece, and that includes everything you feel. That these feelings aren't from nothing, they're for some evolutionary Borg purpose. You are a piece of the Borg, and the Borg is an evil kind of coliseum, where there is no audience. There's just stupid waste. There's just gladiators killing gladiators forever. And it's stupid as fuck. It's just taking. It's just a gross consumption. And all there is bodies all over the place. Somebody had a video with ant wars, ants fighting termites, and all the decapitated bodies at the end of the war. For what? For nature's mandate. Cut their heads off. It'll be fun. Why will it be fun? Yes, because they're driven to do it by a Borg. Yeah. Well, we must do a little more. Play a little more. See what happens.
I think that maybe I was kind of making the same mistake you were making in lacking the capacity to understand how different the world can seem to different people.
Well, my argument to you is that difference gets smaller and smaller as knowledge and information or intelligence, if you want to call it, gets higher and higher. So I would argue that true intellectuals are going to have a lot harder time disagreeing than obviously religious people or some other class of people who don't have facts on their side. It's very hard for intellectuals to disagree about the substantialness of the evidence in the OJ trial, for example, or to have an argument even about global warming or about some other subject, because the facts are the facts, and they can't fuck with them because they have knowledge of them. They can't just dispose of them and pretend they don't exist because they don't have knowledge of them. They can't just make up their simplistic Alex Jonesian theory of conspiracy, and because I can draw a cartoon of Bill and Hillary Clinton murdering people, that somehow that's reality. I just drew the cartoon. It must be the truth. No, I don't think so.
Your philosophy is predicated on this idea that life is so defined by suffering, that existence is so painful.
No, it's based on the premise of the agony and the ecstasy and again, you want to keep you keep doing this to me. I'm the one that's saying you can't discount the suffering. You people are pretending it doesn't exist. And my only argument to you is that's because you have to make it go away. Because the fact is, your pleasures are incredibly trivial. And it would be almost ridiculous to put your orgasm on one side of the scale and some kid in getting radiation therapy at St. Jude Hospital on the other side of the scale and make that make sense, because it couldn't possibly make sense. So then you make me a frickin' I'm way over exaggerating the torture. Well, frankly, I'm a little. I don't think necessarily that's ever been a problem in the human race, the exaggeration of the meaning of torture or the substance of the pain. I think exactly the opposite has been done. They just discount it. How many minutes do the American people spend per year thinking about all the people they irradiated to death, right? The most horrible way to die there is, radiation sickness, okay, at the end of World War II, when they knew they were going to win anyway, all right? We had it in our hands, and we bombed civilian populations. How many Americans, how many minutes do they spend lamenting that crime? Even if they think it was a necessary evil. What amount of appreciation is given? True, meaningful value is given. That's right, almost none. Me, I'm the one doing it. Yeah, one person.
That not only should we not want life for ourselves.
Again, that's not the argument. Again, the argument isn't that this isn't a playable game by animals. I'm an animal. I can play this fucking game. That's not the argument. The argument is whether it's a good fucking game. The dogs in a dog fight are caught up in the dog fight. They're sort of having fun, right? By dog mentality. But obviously the pain and suffering of the end game is horrific. So their ignorance can make, oh, this seems like a good idea. I'm going to chew the fucking ears off that motherfucker. But that's a notion in its head, a stupid notion in the dog's head. And we're supposed to be the smart thing. We're supposed to be able to look at that and say, shit, that's not productive. Don't do it. That can't possibly make a cupcake. That's only going to make nail and eye.
That it's a great imposition.
It's a stinking imposition. I mean, frankly, who the fuck are you to be life creators? Who the fuck gives you the right besides some natural function? You have the function, therefore you're allowed to use it. I have acid for snot, therefore I can snot on anything I want, anytime I want. No. The rules still apply. You have to fucking productively blow your snot on things. You can't just say, I'm going to snot anything, anywhere, anytime. It has to be by some kind of rule. Where do you get this divine right? Where do you, I guess that's where you get it. You just pretend that God gave it to you. You don't recognize it's just a natural function, and you have a responsibility to use it wisely. And there's just no way to use it wisely. The ability to procreate has no wise use. Unless you're planning on creating a superhuman that's going to do some wonderful thing in the world. Unless you think your son's going to be Superman and be completely devoted to reducing harm in the world, you have no business making one of these fucking monsters, one of these Frankensteins to go stomping about. Give me my hamburger. Hamburger, hamburger, hamburger. Fuck you!
Upon as yet uncreated people, to bring them into this world, right? It's almost like levying a tax on someone who doesn't exist yet to create a new life, and
it's taking a risk that you just don't have a right to take. So yeah, that would be the simple argument. You don't have a right to sit there and pretend, well, look, it might end up in a mental institution, tormented and horribly tortured for 30 years, but I'll just pretend that's not a real price being paid for it. No, it's a real price being paid for it. That's going to be a real likelihood. Eventually it's going to happen. That will be the price paid. And do you really think you had a right to impose torture on that individual? You didn't ask him. You didn't do anything. You just said, all the torture will go in your brain, and we'll have all the little candy and fun. I mean, on its face, that's obnoxious. That's Trump, 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 Trump again.
Condemn them to the existence that we live here. But the reason why you see the world that way, Gary, is because life is very painful for you.
Well, again, you're just making the same argument, philosophical rather than personal. You're just doing the same shit. I'm just going to say the same shit. Okay, you're too fucking stupid. All you know is your hamburger, and you're just defending eating hamburgers. That's all you're doing. You're so insecure. You're such a little tiny-minded person that all you're doing is scheming. How can I eat more hamburgers? I have to justify eating more hamburgers because I'm addicted to hamburgers. Okay, so I'll just cut your whole philosophy into some sort of anal turd, okay? It's just so fucking insulting. So shove that shit up your ass. I am so sick of this bull fucking shit. You can't make a rational argument. You can't explain how evolution isn't a Borg. You can't explain how your fucking imposition of suffering on individuals isn't an obscene fucking arrogance. You can't defend your fucking arrogance. So fuck you in the ass with this goddamn personal shit for brain. You're a fucking dumb, stupid turd and you can't defend it intellectually, so all you do is, as the cheap shotter does, you just keep fucking attacking the messenger, you fucking little weaselly cunt. It's a fallacy, your argument is fallacious, weak, you have a weak, limp argument, okay, and you're defending yourself as, oh no, I'm the strong fake Sagan. No, you're not. You're a weak fucking pussy. To be continued.